Greetings all, welcome back to my series on faith, the Unholy Trinity. Today we're taking a look at chapter 2. Now again, as with chapter 1, this is not a gameplay video. There will be some of that in here along the way, but it's really focused on the religious and spiritual aspects of the game. Let's go. Father Garcia, you are hereby instructed to release Michael Davies from your custody and return him to his home immediately. Mr. and Mrs. Davies have already been contacted by our office. A representative of the church is currently en route to their home to discuss compensation in return for their discretion. You will meet our representative there and accompany him back to Rome. Cardinal Gifford. Okay, so here we're going to run across a few photos of Michael. Day 1, he looks like a normal kid, adolescent, young teen, starting to change around 2 weeks now, and then finally, this is what we have, 3 months. We ran across this to a certain degree with Amy in chapter 1, too, where Father Ward had mentioned that her face was starting to be affected, her physical appearance was starting to be affected by the possession. And real-life exorcists have actually said that this will happen, not to, this drastic of a degree, but Father Gary Thomas, who was the subject of the movie The Rite, R-I-T-E, with Anthony Hopkins, he has said in an interview with Patrick Coffin that he has observed people's facial features change during an exorcism. Not to the point where they look completely like an entirely different person or where their bone structure actually changes, but there will be some kind of a shift in their appearance. So we see Michael in restraints here, and that was mentioned in regard to Amy in chapter 1 as well. And again, real-life exorcists have said that frequently the person being exorcised will, with their consent, will be restrained because in a state of full-on possession, people being exorcised have been known to throw people across the room. So to protect the person being exorcised as well as the people on the exorcism team, the person is restrained.
How are we doing today, Michael? I like the cotton. You got to hold on till
I love
you
the
get
voices.
better, Michael. Can I see Mommy and Daddy? I need to make you better first. When she let you pick on me,
So again, asking the demon's name is a regular part of the Catholic exorcism ritual. It's actually mandated in the instructions for exorcism in the Rituale Romanum. It does not give the exorcist power over the demon or power to control the demon, but it gives the exorcist a better idea of what demon he's dealing with so that he can more effectively command it and cast it out. So it looks like Michael became the Chupacabra from chapter 1.
Dios mío, what have you done? I have somebody as a pig! You can't hide from God, evil. You shall breathe the wrath of the Almighty.
So I'm not sure why Father Garcia is telling Michael that Michael's going to drink the wrath of the Almighty. That would imply that God is angry with Michael. But when a person is possessed by a demon, it's not... Sometimes they've done something to invite the demon in, and that might be the case with Michael, or it might not. We'll find out. However, being possessed is not a sin. Oh, it's not locked for once. I love that the tomb is called Save. The family name is Save. Dearest disciple, verily not everyone who says, Lucifer, Lucifer, shall inherit his kingdom. Okay, so pause here for a moment. This is a paraphrase / parody of Christ's words in the gospel. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. So the word verily is an archaic English word that means truly. So it's sort of King James Bible translation language. The word Lucifer, as you may already know, comes from the Latin for the bearer of light. And this is often a name that's applied to Satan or the devil in the Christian tradition. It's taken from a passage in the book of the prophet Isaiah, which is actually describing the king of Babylon. But in the Catholic tradition, and the Eastern Orthodox as well, I'm not sure if the Protestant way of reading the Bible is along these lines, but definitely in Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, there are sort of two levels of meaning to especially the Old Testament scriptures. On one level, there are the words on the page and what they meant at the time they were written, what their human author was aware of at that time, and what the intended audience would have also been aware of and how they would have understood those words. So in this specific case, the reference to the bearer of light, or the son of the morning star, or the morning star in the book of Isaiah, everyone would have recognized that that was a reference to the king of Babylon. But on a deeper level, which the Catholic tradition considers to be the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, which meaning may not be fully revealed until a later point in time, it was a reference to Satan, and to Satan having once been an angel and having been cast out of heaven. So Lucifer originally means the morning star, or the bearer of light, from the book of the prophet Isaiah, and then it got brought into Christianity to describe this fallen angel whom we know of as Satan. You must first conjure his demon. You must then serve his demon. You must then walk among the children of men as his demon. Thus shall you receive the blessing of the unspeakable. Return to the Save family tomb whenever you are in need of rest. Gary. So we're going to save. Okay. So now we're going to have a few puzzles to solve, a few demons to bash. Whoa. Got it in one. I've been freed. No more overbearing father-turned-violent alcoholic. No more hiding my bruises and cuts. No more pills and needles. No more getting laughed at and kicked around. They'll never laugh at me again. By day, my body withers away, but by night, my mind explores forbidden worlds of power and knowledge, guided by beings of pure darkness. I have been trusted with secret knowledge of the demon's seal. I have learned the correct conjuring sign, drawing the inverted star along the rocks arranged in 5. First at the top left point, and then down. So this, of course, refers to the upside-down pentagram or pentacle in the ritual circle with the fox in the middle, which we encountered in Chapter 1. I will lure them into the woods, then I will show them my power. So going back to the beginning of this letter, this shows quite accurately some things that real exorcists have said about things that can open doorways for demonic influence in a person's life. And that includes things like abuse and addiction. When either or both of these things are present in a person's life, it makes the person very spiritually vulnerable, and demons will exploit vulnerabilities and weaknesses. That's how they operate. They're going to attack someone who's in a very vulnerable state. And then it looks like this person just compounded everything by deliberately, actively inviting the demons into his life so that he could have some power over his situation. Losing Grandpa was the hardest thing I have ever experienced. We were really close. I cried about it for weeks. Then my stepmom introduced me to some of her friends. They asked me, "Would you like to see your grandfather again?" I missed him so much, I was willing to try anything. That night, my stepmom drove me to one of her friends' house. They took me down to the basement. I saw my grandfather in there, only it wasn't actually him. When I tried to run, they closed the basement door and locked me in. I can't remember much else from that night. My stepmom's friends are always coming by the house now. They tell me I have a debt to pay. They say they have work for me to do. So grief is another thing that can make a person extremely vulnerable, and demons can masquerade as deceased loved ones. The main example I'm thinking of with that right now is in Hereditary, where Annie was trying to contact her deceased daughter, Charlie, and her vulnerability in that regard led her to conjure up a demon who was masquerading as her daughter. So this monument down at the bottom of the screen here, this hooded figure carrying the cross, it's reminiscent of Christ carrying his cross, which we read in the Gospel of John. And that's really to demonstrate that Jesus had complete control of this whole situation at all times. He was not a helpless victim. But this monument here is a hooded figure, so it doesn't look like Christ carrying the cross. This looks like the alien from the Alien movies. Oh! Ah!
Mortis.
Finally! Oh my goodness, that only took 5 hours. Nobody was thrilled when I got pregnant. Not even a little happy. Even my doctors seemed to be judging me. Each time I'd leave the doctor's office, I'd see this strange woman across the street. All she'd do is stare at me and smile. No words, just a big, warm smile. Somehow, it made those visits a little more bearable. After I lost the baby, I saw her again across the street from the doctor's. Her smile was as big as ever, but somehow not as warm and friendly as I remember. Yesterday I was walking and was shocked to see the woman standing in the middle of the path. Now she was pregnant. She beckoned towards me. I followed her off the path into the woods. That's when I met Gary. So it seems that these letters are from different people who all joined the cult. She guards the door to underground purgatory. Eye hath not seen her, children fear her. So let's say a brief word about purgatory. Purgatory is a specifically Catholic doctrine. Eastern Orthodox Christianity also has a similar idea of a period of purgation and atonement after death and before being able to enter the direct presence of God in heaven, but it's not quite the same as purgatory, and it's not called purgatory. In Catholicism, purgatory is not an in-between state between heaven and hell, where it's like a waiting room where you wait to find out where you're going to end up. Purgatory is always directed towards heaven. It's for people who die in a state of friendship with God, but there are sins in their lives that they never perfectly atone for, and because sin and the divine presence cannot occupy the same space, so anything sinful cannot be in the direct presence of God, there's this period of cleansing or purgation that this person undergoes, but purgatory is always directed towards heaven, never directed towards hell. But the word purgatory is often used in common speech to refer to a sort of in-between state where you're neither one place nor another. Day one of our paranormal investigation into the old Snake Meadow Hill Church. We've got 3 cameras, a box of tapes, and enough beer and beef jerky to last us a week. On our way in, we asked some of the locals about the church. It was mostly the stories we had heard before, evil spirits dragging children into the cornfield and secret tunnels under the chapel. But there was this spindly lady game that we hadn't heard yet. Apparently it has to do with summoning the spirit of a woman who used to take care of the orphans back in the 50s. There was even an old rhyme they told us. Walk the church from room to room, and maybe you will see her. She will move when you do, but never try to trick her. Awesome! We're gonna try the game tonight as soon as we get settled in. So this paranormal team has vanished. So that's bad news. So this is the entrance to the basement, but we can't get there until we defeat the spindly lady. Got some stained glass here. The dove typically represents the Holy Spirit. This looks like an angel. It could be Christ because he's holding a cross, but he's not bearded, and Christ is usually bearded, so could be an angel. John the Baptist is often shown holding a cross, but John the Baptist is also shown bearded, so this just looks like an angel. This looks like exactly what happened to Amy during the exorcism towards the end of chapter 1, with the arm coming out. And we have to exorcise one of these windows. I'm not sure if it's maybe this one. Yep. Let's take a look at the final window before we read the note. There's a cross. Okay. Night 2. We're gonna be rich. We've caught supernatural stuff on camera before, sure. Doors opening on their own, things falling off of shelves. But nothing like this. Tonight, while we were trying the spindly lady game again, one of the candles on the floor lit up by itself as soon as Lars walked into the room. It was nuts, and we got it all on film. We're gonna make a fortune selling this to the TV stations. Here we go. See the one candle, and then something's here. Sometimes it takes a while for her to show up. Oh, there we go. Ah! She would have me for sure. Ah! Ah! was a good one. Oh. Oh no! So here we have a cross with an eye in the center. The eye, of course, is a common symbol to many spiritual traditions. In chapter 1, we saw the eye of Horus. This is not the eye of Horus, but the single eye can be used as a sign of God the Father in the Christian tradition, and it's also, of course, a Freemasonic symbol. If you look on the back of an American dollar bill, at the top point of the pyramid, there is an eye. And that eye on the American dollar bill is usually understood to represent God the Father. Got her? Okay, that was a good one. I think this is the hardest time I've had with this one so far. No way. Finally! Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is a confessional box, so we'll take a look at this in a second, but we'll exorcise this skull first. So it's interesting that they have a skull and a box on a table here. That leads me to believe that this is supposed to be a sacred relic. Relics in the Catholic tradition, anyway, I don't know if I think Eastern Orthodox Christians have relics. Protestant Christians don't really do relics. But in the Catholic tradition, there are 3 levels of relics. This one here, if it's an actual body part of a saint, would be considered a first-class relic. Then you have second-class relics, which are things that the saint owned or came into contact with frequently, like clothing, for example. And then there are third-class relics, which is an item that is touched to a first-class relic. So if you were, for example, to take rosary beads and touch them to the box that this skull is in, those rosary beads would become a third-class relic. The idea behind first-class relics actually comes from the Bible itself. In the 2nd book of Kings, the prophet Elisha had died and was buried, and sometime later there was a funeral near where Elisha's bones were buried, and a band of marauding Moabites, they were enemies of ancient Israel, was going through that area, and to get out of the marauders' way, the people burying the recently deceased man needed to hurry up the proceedings. So instead of creating a new grave, they simply cast the dead man's body into the same grave with the bones of the prophet Elisha. And when the dead man came into contact with Elisha's bones, he was restored to life. God had worked a very great miracle through the earthly remains of a holy man. And so coming into contact with the mortal remains of a holy person has power. Now, this is not magic because this is entirely about this holy person's connection to God. Venerating the relics of saints is meant to put us into closer contact with God by maintaining a connection with the holy person whose remains these relics are. In the Catholic Church, there's a belief in what's called the communion of saints. This is based on the idea that the church is actually in 3 parts. There's the church militant, which is the church here on earth, and it's called militant because we are fighting spiritual battles, spiritual warfare every day, just trying to overcome everyday temptations and live according to God's will. Then there's the church suffering, which is the souls in purgatory. And there's the church triumphant, which is the saints in heaven. Venerating the relic of a saint sort of closes that gap between the church militant and the church triumphant. It reminds us that we are one church with the saints in heaven. So it looks like that's what this is supposed to be. Night 3. Shouldn't have come here. Tape's missing. Lars stuck behind basement door. Henry hasn't come back yet. Can't leave anyway. Doesn't specify why they can't leave. So this is a confessional box. This is where the priest would go, right in the center, and then the people making their confessions would go on either side. And this door here is actually an entrance to the basement, so we're going to go in there in just a second. But one of the Catholic sacraments, which are means of directly conveying God's grace to a person, is the sacrament of confession, penance, or reconciliation. It's known by all three names. And this is where a Catholic confesses sins to a priest. Now, the priest is not actually doing the forgiving. Christ is doing the forgiving, and the priest is acting as Christ's representative, pronouncing Christ's forgiveness of that person's sins. This is the grill in the confessional. And that's very true to the confession formula. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is what a penitent will say right on going into the confessional. This is referring to Amy in chapter 1.
I am sorry for these and my past sins.
The confessional formula here is quite accurate. Yeah, so this isn't a real priest. His mercy endures forever. Good research on this game, because that formula is very accurate. Okay, here's the basement. This looks like the painting of a saint, perhaps the Virgin Mary. Night 1. We still haven't found a way into the basement, but we found something just as cool. A secret passage in the old confession booth leading to this hallway. Henry's going into town to buy a crowbar. We'll see if we can't get these boards off of some of these doors. But that's not even the best part. We caught an EVP. This stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena. And these are sounds that will sometimes appear on recordings which cannot be caught by the ear at the time. And there's quite a bit of question and debate as to what exactly these are. Some do believe that they are the voices of the dead. Some believe that they're sort of residual sounds. There's a wide range of interpretation as to what these noises could actually be. You can't hear it on tape very well, but to us it sounded like laughing. Thank God we brought the nice mic. We'll review it on the sound gear once we get back into town. So, defeating the Spindly Lady will open up the basement stair entrance. So let's go there now. Darkness surrounds thee. This is my final memoir, hastily scribbled on a page of the good book. That refers to the Bible. Not so long ago, the Bible was known as the Good Book. It may still be in some circles, but I haven't heard it referred to that way in quite some time. I now descend the staircase, knowing full well that she waits for me ahead. Checking my old watch has revealed something quite astonishing. Time doesn't change down here as we know it on the surface. Even now the hands don't move past 2 o'clock. God's work be done. I have been to where only the faintest lights shine and protect from things unspeakable. God help me, Father Clark, a foolish old man, going mad in this dark prison, ears bleeding from the screams of the demon. So perhaps Father Clark was the pastor of this church. Oh my. The deer running should have been our first clue. 3 murdered in latest wave of ritualistic killings, Sterling, Connecticut. The bodies of 3 young people were discovered in the woods outside of Sterling last night in what authorities are calling a ritualistic murder. Sandra Atwood, Angel Nogales, and Troy Ingles are the names of the unfortunate victims who were apparently stabbed multiple times and beheaded before being killed in a paganistic ritual. Wait a minute. Beheaded before being killed? Pandemonium regnat. This means all demons rule. 2 of the victims' bodies were also partially burned, although authorities would not specify who. The bodies were found several miles from Gallup Cemetery, where residents reported a tomb had been desecrated. They also found trails of blood leading off into the woods. Investigators would not comment on whether or not these 2 incidents could be related. The arrangement of the bodies in a ritualistic pattern, as well as the writing of certain symbols in blood, matches the style of several murders that have occurred in the Sterling area since 1986. The killings may be connected to last week's brutal slaying of Amy Martin, a 17-year-old girl, by John Ward. Ward had impersonated a priest to gain Amy's trust before luring her into the woods and killing her. So it looks like the good ending of Chapter 1 isn't being taken into consideration going forward into the rest of the game. It looks like this is only being based on ending 1. Investigators are asking residents to report any suspicious activity to the police. Authorities are urging the people of Sterling to not mourn the loss of Atwood, Nogales, and Ingles because, after all, they were degenerate, devil-worshipping thugs who were hooked on cocaine and hated their parents. Why even conduct an investigation at all? That's what you would like them to think, wouldn't you, John? They were just 3 pathetic outcasts who got what they deserved. You actually did the community a favor when you found them getting high in that tomb. You stalked them through the graves and killed them one by one. You ignored their cries for help, their pleas for mercy. You put holes in their ruined drug addict bodies, and then you chopped off their heads because everybody knows that removing the head is the only way to kill a snake. Well, guess what? You didn't kill the snake, John. You cannot kill what cannot be killed. Thou shalt not raise up what thou canst not put down again. Thou couldst not kill Amy. Thou shalt not destroy my works, for they are the works of the eternal dragon. Of course, the dragon is a reference to Satan. Even now she is at thy door. Her hand is at thy throat, yet you see her not. I will have thy soul, for I am the God of this world. This is also a reference to Satan, and it comes to us from the words of Christ himself in the Gospel of John, who calls Satan the ruler of this world. Pandemonium regnat satani vitae, pandemonium regnat satani vitae, pandemonium, and this just repeats over and over and over again. And here, of course, we have the infamous 666 with an upside-down cross. I talk about the number 666. It's not 3 separate 6s, it's a whole number, 666. I talk about that in my video on long legs. I also refer to the upside-down cross. This can be a symbol of Saint Peter, although it's usually portrayed as a sort of anti-Christ symbol. I'm here, John. Oh my! So we have now been transformed into a demon. Back to normal. I wonder if that represents John and Amy. Not sure, though. Here we are in the sewer, because every horror game needs a sewer. This is as far as I'll go to hide my stash. Nobody goes past the first pipe. Nobody except those strange people with their bodies painted red and their eyes like animals. Amy had a red face in Chapter 1. I wonder if that's a reference to that. Twice a month they come and pass right through into the deeper tunnels. Sometimes I can hear them yelling or chanting. Sometimes I hear something like an old woman laughing. Sometimes I hear things that aren't even human. Whatever they are, they sound really, really big. Oh. There's more this way. When I was a boy, my Nana used to tell me old legends about the dragons, trolls, and demons that lived up in the mountains of Norway. In those old tales, the people were never strong enough to kill the monster, so instead they would sacrifice one of their own to appease it, keep it satisfied. It was like a deal with the devil. One sacrifice per year so that the beast would not come down from the mountain and slaughter the entire village in one night. There was no candy store killer. What we're dealing with is not even human. When I got separated from the other officers, I saw the damn thing dragging what was left of Jenkins down into its lair. That's when I understood. The bums and the tooters, the ones with grit and the child prostitute runaways, they'll eventually come back to the tunnels. They always do. It can have them for all I care. Nobody wants them around, except maybe that thing. And I'll tell you what, I hope to God it never gets tired of them. That's nice. I like this game, including so many different cultures, religious and spiritual traditions. We've got Norway here. We had, in Chapter 1, we had a reference to Kimbamba. We have, of course, the Catholic tradition. There's a real mix of things going on here. We pick up this flashlight. Oh my. So, that phrase, suffer the children, again, that's how a phrase appears in the King James Bible, so it's archaic English. The word suffer means to allow, and it refers to the words of Christ in the Gospel when people were bringing their children to Jesus to have him lay hands on them, bless them, and his disciples were saying, "Oh no, keep these children away from the master." And Jesus said, "No, let the children come to me, do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." In King James Bible English, if you will, the more archaic translation, it's suffer the children. Because suffer means to allow. So it does not mean children should suffer or let the children suffer. It means to allow. Okay, so full disclosure, I had to consult a walkthrough for this part. The reason why I can't get by is because I have not fulfilled all 3 of the conditions to get the note at the top there, which were laid out in an earlier note. To worship the demon, I'm trying to remember, to worship the demon and to serve the demon and to walk as the demon. If I had done all 3 of those things, I would be able to get past these 3 barriers. However, I have not, so apparently I should be able to unlock the door and get out of the sewers now.
Here I am. Daily Jewish. Don't be afraid, God. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in God's name, there will he be also. We can banish this demon together. You must protect me while I recite the 91st Psalm. Let us go.
There's Father Garcia, and he just quoted from the Gospel where Christ says, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them."
Yes, it's true what happened to Amy. You are no murderer, God. what you could have done. But maybe now her soul is at rest.
Again, as I said in my video for chapter 1, it is never an option to just kill the subject of an exorcism in order to free the person's soul. That's just not a thing. That's Hollywood. Okay, Okay, here's some Latin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Here's Psalm 91 again. I don't know if protecting Father Garcia has any bearing on what ending we get. Again, here's Psalm 91, as we saw also at the end of chapter 1, some of the endings. I think that Father Garcia has to finish the whole psalm in order for this to be successful. It's a long psalm. Oh no! The phrase, "Get behind me, Satan," comes from the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. When Jesus tells his apostles that he is going to soon travel to Jerusalem and will be killed there, Peter tries to talk Jesus out of going, and Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." It sounds like Jesus is calling the apostle Peter the king of hell, but that's not what's going on here. The word Satan comes from a Hebrew word that means adversary, so Jesus is calling Peter an obstacle here, not the king of hell. Wow. Oh my. There we go. What? What? Oh my gosh, no! This is gonna take 5 hours! This is insane. Uh-oh. So it seems like here we're getting a combination of everything that we've experienced from other demons in the game. God, I ran right into her! Apparently, Father Garcia is totally ineffective. John, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I will always love you back, Molly. So, Catholic priests are, of course, not permitted to have any romantic relationships. So it's not clear exactly who Molly is. It could be a different woman in his life. From the way it's worded, it certainly seems as though she would be a romantic relationship. And if that is the case, if Father John is in a romantic relationship as a Catholic priest, then that would definitely affect his ability to conduct spiritual warfare. If there is a sin that has not been confessed, and this goes for not only the priests who conduct exorcisms, but also anybody on the exorcism team, if there is a sin that has not been confessed and absolved in sacramental confession, that is going to compromise that person's ability to effectively combat demonic forces. John, we don't have much time. The profane Sabbath is almost upon us. If they find Nate and Jason, they will perform a ritual on them to call forth a demon of unspeakable power. The name of the demon is Malphus. I am in the process of discovering their whereabouts. I will contact you again soon. We must not let them do to the boys what they did to Amy. Father Garcia.
My nightmares are getting worse. Ever since I left that house, I am haunted by visions of demons. I finished my work with Amy, but now the boys are in danger. This time I must not fail. Malphus must be stopped. As the profane Sabbath draws closer, the workers of darkness grow stronger. This will be my greatest test of faith yet. God have mercy on my soul.
Ending 1, go forth with faith. So that's a little bit different than the ending we got if Father Garcia dies during the fight with Miriam. John, it is not too late. Your soul can still be saved. All is not lost. Please wait for my next letter. For now, I have many questions that need answering. In the meantime, be careful. They are watching you. Father Garcia.
I survived the nightmare, but did I really do the right thing? I don't know what is real anymore. My faith is weak, and I feel a dark shadow over me. If I can save the boys, maybe I will find what I'm looking for.
Okay, so that whole thing might have been a dream, I guess? Looks like a cultist is following Father John. Okay. I got ending 2, Road to Redemption. Well, everyone, I finally defeated Miriam, and on we go to Chapter 3 for the final installment of Faith, the Unholy Trinity. I really hope that you've enjoyed watching the series so far. As always, thank you so much for giving my bumbling attempts through this game some time of your day. Hope to see you for the next one. Take care.